Well, hello again. We're still talking about money, and we're talking still about those gold merchants and their safes and what they did with the gold and how we get to where we are today with our currency and fiat currency and what we're doing with our banking. Remember that the gold merchants had safes, and for a small fee you could put your gold to keep it safe from the crooks in a gold merchant safe, and that's how it all begins. The goldsmiths, of course, were the few people who had strong safes, and if one had valuables like gold, which of course was used both nationally and internationally, a person had to have somewhere to keep it safe from thieves. The gold merchants provided for a small fee the use of their safes, and they would have given you a receipt for the gold that was in their safe, and you could probably use that receipt in terms of paper money. And eventually the goldsmiths made the discovery that would affect mankind in a much greater way than Christopher Columbus. They learned through experience that nearly all the gold that was left with them for safekeeping remained untouched in their vaults. Hardly ever would the gold owners ever come to withdraw any of their precious metal. They would rather use the goldsmith's receipt in their business transactions. This is how banking all starts. So paper money, notes, receipts become used as a money exchange. The original idea being that the gold merchants kept the gold in their safe, and so if it was needed, they could present the receipts and get the gold. The problem was that merchants eventually wrote more receipts than they had gold in the safe. So even some of the gold that they were lending wasn't theirs anyway, it was just deposited there. And that is how we get, here's a new phrase for you, the new system that we even use right now today, which we call fractional reserve banking. It all starts back then with these gold merchants. You remember, only about 10% of the people ever came back for their gold. This is how fractional reserve banking begins. So they're using the extra deposits as credit notes. Originally, when people placed their gold in the safe, the merchant would lend against it even though it was not his gold. Eventually, he's lending receipts rather than gold. Fractional reserve lending. We'll develop this. Okay, let's swap a little bit and talk about something slightly strange, but the use of playing cards as money. Typically, when short of funds, the government simply delayed paying merchants for their purchases. In other words, government gets taxes, and if they hadn't got enough money coming into the coffer and the government had ordered, I don't know, people to build roads, they simply would not pay the money. In fact, I've experienced the fact that in some countries that still happens. Now, here's a new word for you. We've learnt the word fiat. Now, here's a new word, specie. What is specie? Specie is the word for coins as money rather than paper money. And in 1795, the Bank of England held about £8 million worth of specie. That would mean that £8 million in the bank vaults was actually in currency or coins. Now, there was a real pressure on coins because most people were paid in coins. Let me tell you a little story. When I first started work, for 6.5 days a week, I earned the grand sum, here we go, of £3.50. And most of my wages, which was paid weekly, came in coins. It wasn't in notes. In fact, seeing a £5 note was a miracle. So you need to have a look at some of the old currency in the UK, like our 10 shilling note and our £1 notes. Anyway, let's move on. The payment of soldiers in a war could not be postponed. Soldiers didn't like not getting paid. And there was one person, and he was trying to pay his soldiers money, and he ran out of money. And he was a French soldier in a French colony. It was called New France. I don't know if you know where New France is. I'll tell you in a minute. But his money ran out. He then borrowed money from all over the place to pay the soldiers to protect the area. And eventually his friends ran out of money and he couldn't find any more money or specie to pay for his soldiers. And he writes back to France and says, "You haven't sent the ship with more specie." And here's his letter. He's complaining about the fact that how on earth is he going to pay the soldiers for their work? And he comes up with an idea, and he takes playing cards and he writes a value on the playing cards, rips them up and issues them to the soldiers and says, "This is your money." But he also tells all the suppliers, all the shopkeepers and all the people, all the traders in the area, you must accept this as money. And so for a while, playing cards became the money in New France. You still don't know where New France is? It's what we would now call Quebec in Canada. So New France was the first place to have playing card money. And the card money was this short-term financial device, and it became common currency of exchange in Quebec. And it provided a way of money for the whole area, and right through till the fall of Quebec in 1759, playing card money was in circulation in Quebec. Isn't that strange? Because France hadn't managed to deliver specie, which is coins, in their ships to the person in charge, and so he had been very inventive and created his own money. Okay, Proverbs 22 verse 7, the borrower is slave to the lender. Are we all slave to the banks and the building societies? Let's look a bit further about the evolution of fiat money, and this is how it develops. First of all, we've got the goldsmiths who store gold and become banks. Banks lend gold that is theirs, but by the means of a receipt. Banks then go on to lend other people's gold stored in their vaults as if it was theirs. Banks then lend no gold with no backing, just receipts. The development of what we now call fractional reserve banking. This is where the concept first starts. Money today is not backed by gold or anything else, actually. Do you know what money is backed by? It's backed by debt. No debt, no money. So this is what Rothschild said in 1744. He was the sort of chief banker to 1812. He said, "Permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws." Have a good day.